What's going on, everybody? Mortem here, this time bringing you all of the announcements at yesterday's Gamescom opening show, or their opening night live to be a little more specific. And if for whatever reason you're watching this and don't know what Gamescom is, Gamescom being the largest gaming convention in the world, naturally comes with some announcements, release dates, that kind of thing, which is why it is one of the shows throughout the year that I watch, mostly so I can sort of get an idea of what I've got upcoming, what to deal with, that kind of thing. And naturally, I want to share the highlights of that with you. But do keep in mind, I am primarily focused on the stuff that is relevant to this channel. So while there were reveals for the next Call of Duty as an example, a trailer for World of Warcraft and some other MMO stuff, that's not really my focus, mostly here for the RPGs. With that in mind, with this particular show, I would say that while there were a few announcements, the vast majority was stuff that we already knew was coming, but we got more details about. With that in mind, though, still a lot of stuff to go over, so let's go ahead and get on with it. So kicking it off, just kind of at the beginning of the show, going to go more or less in order of what was shown off here. We first have Swords of Legends, what appears to be just regular old hack-and-slash action-style game, but nonetheless a Chinese dark fantasy title that admittedly we've been seeing a lot of lately. I'll be curious to see if they're not kind of wearing the thread thin once this one gets around to releasing. But no release date or anything, this was just an announcement. A reveal trailer, if you will. Second up for me, we had the announcement of a game called Valor Mortis. This actually looked really cool, and it describes itself as a first-person action Souls-like title set during the Napoleonic Wars. Now, I think the first-person part of this, if it is actually a Souls-like, is the most interesting to me. Obviously, I haven't seen a lot of games try to do that, but it looks really heavy on a very particular art style, alongside some combat that looked engaging enough, mind you, but I would say first-person melee is honestly a pretty difficult thing for games to pull off and feel satisfying with, so I'll be curious to see if the Ghost Runner devs can manage to do just that. Although I do also know that first-person exclusive titles do tend to put off a lot of people, so I'll, again, be curious to see if this can bring anything fresh to the genre beyond just the perspective switch. But anyway, it looks super cool to me, so I'll definitely be playing it. Following on from that, we got a little bit of Hollow Knight Silksong news, which isn't really my thing, to be honest, but I actually wanted to mention it because they made it sound like this was official confirmation of its release. That is to say, it's supposed to be releasing in 2025, but I'm 99% sure we already knew that, so I just thought it was odd, I suppose. Next up, they showed off the big Call of Duty Black Ops 7. Again, also not really my thing, but I will say the marketing for the trailers and stuff for this have felt like from a different game entirely, which is interesting. Right after that, we had the announcement of Lords of the Fallen 2, sequel, of course, to the, not exactly first Lords of the Fallen, but the previous one, which was also named Lords of the Fallen, which sounds confusing, but basically there's two games named Lords of the Fallen from the same people. The most recent one is the one I'm referring to, this being a sequel to, and 2 here is set about 100 years after the first one, and it looks like the forces that are fraying the threads between life and death are rearing their ugly heads again, and we have to get to the bottom of it. I'll be curious to see how much they learned from the first game here, because while it launched in a bit of a rough place, they did add on a significant amount of changes and things, I think 2 or 3 complete overhauls to the original that I would say for the most part made it better. Curious to see how this one's going to wind up. Not long after that, though, strangely enough, I think what wound up almost being the biggest announcement of this show somehow was that Lego Batman Legacy of the Dark Knight is a thing that is happening. And to be honest with you, I'm kind of into it. They're adding things like difficulty and stuff to the Lego series, and while I'm probably not going to play this for me specifically, I do have a 6-year-old who is crazy into Legos right now, and I may very well buy this for us to play together. Following on from that, Warhammer 40k got an announcement in the form of Dawn of War 4. Dawn of War is a series people have asked me to take a look at forever, and Dawn of War may very well finally be an excuse for me to do that, if only to take a look at it, I suppose. Next up, we've got some more gameplay for the upcoming Onimusha Way of the Sword, showing off some more gameplay and things ahead of its release in 2026. Mostly for this one, I was just kind of enjoying the different enemy designs. They look appropriately unsettling when they move, but either way, another action game headed our way. The next thing I wanted to mention is the teaser for the upcoming season DLC for Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, The Order of Giants. So Indiana Jones and the Great Circle is a surprisingly fantastic game. If you haven't played it, I'd highly recommend you do so, and I'm actually looking forward to this DLC, which is launching on September 4th. And it is, as the name would imply, going to take a look at the Giants, which got a decent amount of screen time in the base game, but really only scratched the surface. This DLC aims, of course, to flesh some of that out. Another game I wanted to mention, not so much because of the game itself, but who it was made by, and that is Death by Scrolling, which is being made by Ron Gilbert, the guy who made Monkey Island, and it looks like this is a relatively simple game. You're just going to be running up the screen trying to get around obstacles as the screen below you will kill you if you fall too far behind, and it looked kind of novel in a play in a short burst kind of way. Following on from that, the next one I wanted to mention is the upcoming Ninja Gaiden 4. This is something we've already done. I've actually done an early preview of this game myself as well, but in particular, they dropped the full story trailer for this one. It's still coming out on October 21st, not too much longer to wait for that one. Although I will say it does actually share a release date with Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2 now, though I would imagine there's not a lot of overlap with those two things. We also got a look at Silent Hill F, releasing relatively soon, September 25th, I believe. Not honestly sure if I'm going to cover this one yet or not. Not my normal genre, but I did think the trailer was appropriately weird and unsettling. Seeing you fighting off with a surprising amount of melee, all of these upsetting and strangely articulated creatures alongside the typical psychological horror type stuff you would expect from the series. Right after that, we got a look at La Divinia Commedia, which I'm probably mispronouncing, or basically the Divine Comedy, which looks to be a Souls-like, focusing heavily on parrying, and you're going to be fighting off mechanical puppets of some sorts. This looks like a weird mix of both like Inotria and Lies of P. I'm honestly here just for the art style more than anything else. I'm not sure anybody was really clamoring for yet another Souls-like, if we're being real honest with each other, but we'll see what happens. Next up, we had another trailer release for Cronos The New Dawn. I actually, just yesterday, from the time of this video, put out an early preview from where I got to play through the introduction of this one, and it looks to be a very unsettling survival horror type experience where you fight off whatever caused the end of the world as you travel through various time periods, collecting essences from people as you work for some strange group called the Collective. Overall, though, it looks pretty cool. I'm actually looking forward to playing that one quite a bit. It's Obsidian's turn right after that, though, because then we got a look at the companions of The Outer Worlds 2. This is mostly just marketing and stuff ahead of course, its 29th of October release date. I would say, if anything, this probably marks their big marketing push, as the roughly 2 months ahead of a game's release tends to be where you see a lot of that happening. All of which, of course, represent the game's faction, as you would probably expect, and further confirmation, of course, that you can, in fact, not romance them. Probably, I would say, the only announcement that genuinely kind of upset me a little bit, surprisingly so, was that, somewhat expectedly, we got the release date for Bloodlines 2, which is the 21st of October, as I mentioned just a bit ago. Everyone was expecting kind of a Halloween release date here for this, so again, no surprise at all. What was a surprise, though, is that they both announced two clans that were not released previously were going to be there day one, but unfortunately locked behind a paywall, which means literally 1/3 of the game's available classes will be locked behind said paywall, specifically the La Sombra and the Toreador. And honestly, after like everything this game has been through, you could have earned so much goodwill by just surprise announcing that 2 more clans were going to be introduced to this, and also keeping the price reasonable, and I think that would have done at the very least some good PR that this game is in desperate need of. Just a terrible decision to lock those 2 clans, 2 popular clans even, behind a day 1 DLC that brings the total price up to like $90. Honestly, wild stuff. Enshrouded, a survival craft game that I liked, that has been in early access for a while, is getting a update in the form of its Wake of the Water update. I doubt I'll jump into that game again until it fully launches, but nonetheless cool to see it making progress, of course. Getting closer to the end now, we then had the next DLC for Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, Legacy of the Forge, got some information. I was actually a little curious about this one because we've known the name of it for some time and that it would revolve around the crafting systems in game, specifically things like blacksmithing, as the name Legacy of the Forge would certainly imply, but it looks to be the case that there's going to be a decent chunk of story with this DLC as well, because you are going to take ownership of a burnt down forge, get it up and running again, and presumably running as a proper business that you can then, of course, utilize to expand your crafting horizons. Now, I would guess on top of that story, we're also going to get a bunch of crafting related things like extra recipes, things like that. You can already make the best stuff via crafting, so I'm curious where they're going to go from there. Third from the end, we got a further look at Ghost of Yotei, which unfortunately is a PS5 only release, and this is a PC channel, so it'll be a while before I play it personally, but this announcement was basically to confirm that the Legends, or the multiplayer mode, will be there as DLC in 2026, with the game itself launching a little later this year, I believe. Since it isn't coming to PC, I wasn't paying a ton of attention to the release date on that one. Second to the end, we then had Resident Evil Requiem. This one we will play as the young protagonist, Grace Ashcroft, in Resident Evil's latest take on the survival horror genre. Now, I will say, while I haven't played Resident Evil in quite some time, I think 4 was the last one I played, something about the aesthetics of this one are really interesting to me. Haven't decided whether or not I'll cover it for sure, but either way, it's releasing on February 26th, 2026. So we'll wind up seeing it sooner or later, one way or another. And then finally, to close out the show, they announced a new Black Myth title. I can't even begin to pronounce the name of this one, sorry. But this was just an announcement for the next title for Game Science. They also mentioned that Black Myth Wukong is seemingly not done entirely yet either. They said that journey was going to continue in some way, not exactly sure what they meant as it was a little cryptic. But if you liked Black Myth Wukong, as I did, and plenty of other people did as well, probably worth keeping an eye on this one. Information's a little light otherwise, though, for the moment. And I think that pretty well wraps up everything there was to know, at least as far as this channel is concerned, with the announcements and highlights for, of course, Gamescom's Opening Night Live. So hopefully you found all of that interesting, found some information you were looking for. That said, if there's something I didn't mention that you would like to talk about, by all means, drop it down in the comments section below, which of course means to like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTube jazz. But regardless of any of that, truly, just thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. May you wander in wisdom and have an amazing day.